All right, let's jump right in. Picture this. We're traveling back in time to the historical Vijayanagara kingdom. Now, usually this place was famous for its absolute immense wealth and prosperity, right? But the source material we're looking at today drops us into a vastly different reality. A totally devastating drought has absolutely gripped the land. I mean, the fields are completely dried up, the once bountiful crops are just gone, and food is incredibly scarce for everyday people. It's one of those dire, back-against-the-wall crises that truly test the character of a nation and its leaders. So in this explainer, we're going to look at how one single, seemingly tiny event during this massive drought completely flipped an entire kingdom's understanding of generosity.
And that brings us to a pretty profound dilemma. The ruler of the struggling kingdom, King Krishnadevaraya, looks out at all this suffering and poses a really direct question to his court of ministers. He asks, "Tell me, what is the greatest charity in this difficult time?" Now, take a second and actually ask yourself that same question. If you were a super wealthy ruler facing a catastrophic famine, what would you consider the absolute ultimate act of giving? At first glance, it just seems like a straightforward question of, logistics and resource management. But as we'll soon see, the king was about to get a total masterclass in human empathy.
So, the minister's approach? Well, it was exactly what you'd expect from wealthy administrators. One minister immediately chimes in, suggesting they donate thousands of gold coins. Another proposes this massive mass distribution of clothes to the poor. You see, they're thinking completely in terms of volume, scale, and giving from their surplus. But then, we have the legendary advisor, Tenali Rama. And instead of spitting out a number, he just tells the king, "Maharaj, I will give you the answer to this tomorrow." He doesn't offer a spreadsheet, he doesn't offer a budget, he actually sets up a demonstration. He wants to show the king that true charity might actually just be a handful of rice, rooted in pure sacrifice.
So Tenali Rama literally takes the king out of the palace for a real-world field experiment. The very next day, he leads the king, who's in disguise, by the way, to a poor old woman's hut right in the middle of the city. Now, this impoverished woman has absolutely nothing left to eat, except for a single handful of rice. Literally, that is her entire net worth of food. Then the ultimate stress test arrives right at her door. A traveler appears begging, saying he hasn't eaten a single thing in 2 days. He is completely starving. And what does the woman do? She doesn't pause to calculate her own survival. Without even a split second of hesitation, she takes her one and only handful of rice, cooks it, and feeds the whole thing to the traveler.
Once the traveler leaves, the king is just absolutely astonished by what he just witnessed. He steps forward and asks the old woman the exact question that any logical person would ask, right? He says, "Why didn't you save anything for yourself?" She just simply smiles and says, "He was hungrier than me. God will send something for me again." I really want us to just sit with the profound weight of that for a second. Right in the middle of a devastating drought, facing her own very real starvation, her metric for giving wasn't based on what she could afford to lose. Not at all. It was based entirely on the immediate, pressing pain of the person standing right in front of her. And this is where Tenali Rama breaks down the exact logic for the king. He turns to the monarch and explains the true mathematics of empathy. Think about it. If someone has millions of coins, giving away 1,000 is mathematically completely insignificant to their survival, right? It requires zero real sacrifice. It's just a drop in the bucket. But if a person possesses only a single handful of rice to their name, and they give that exact handful away to someone in need, they haven't just given food. They've given absolutely everything. They've literally given their own immediate survival. So Tenali Rama proves that the scale of sacrifice is not measured by the size of the gift, but by what the giver has left over once that gift is given. The impact of this realization on the king is just immediate and deeply emotional. I mean, the king's eyes actually filled with tears. He was fundamentally moved by this undeniable truth. Obviously, he immediately makes sure the old woman is rewarded, arranging for her to have food and shelter provided for the rest of her life. But he doesn't stop there. He takes this intensely personal lesson and broadcasts it to his entire kingdom. The whole royal court is left in absolute awe, both of Tenali Rama's brilliant way of teaching the lesson and of the old woman's staggering generosity. So the king issues this powerful decree that completely redefines the standard of giving for his people.
Which brings us to the core thesis of this whole explainer. This is the official lesson King Krishnadevaraya learned, and it's absolutely what we should take away from this, too. True charity is an act of giving determined purely by the giver's selfless emotion and the level of sacrifice involved. The physical quantity, the material value, the thousands of gold coins, that's all secondary. It's a total paradigm shift. The value of charity isn't determined by the receiver's gain, but by the giver's profound intention and the personal cost they're willingly absorbing. It's all about giving from a place of deep, selfless feeling rather than, just giving from a place of comfortable abundance. So I want to leave you with a final, resonant question that bridges this ancient story directly to our modern lives. Look at your own life, look at your own resources, and your own habits of generosity. When we help others, do we give just from our convenience, kind of skimming off the top of our excess where it doesn't really affect us? Or do we give with true, selfless emotion where we actually feel the weight and the real sacrifice of that gift? It's definitely a challenging standard to live up to, but as an old woman with a single handful of rice proved to an incredibly powerful king, it really is the only true measure of charity. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this leaves you with something really powerful to think about today.